Welcome to all of you, Shiksha 360. And today, basically, we will discuss our topic that is NPA provision. Clear? That is NPA provision. Clear? And I request to all of you, please subscribe our YouTube channel that is Shiksha 360 for all the updates regarding the videos. Clear? So let's start our session. And one thing, basically, I will tell you, if you have any doubt, any query regarding any question, clear, that is basically you are solving from any book clear or basically from at any other place clear and you have doubt, so I request to all of you, please forward your doubt basically on our this email ID clear, so that basically later on basically we will check and basically in the upcoming session clear, basically we will guide you regarding that clear, basically we will help you basically how to solve that question clear. So let's start our session. So NPA provisioning is our topic. Clear? In this session, basically we will discuss some basic points regarding that. Clear? Some basic points regarding that. So first of all, when an asset basically becomes an NPA, NPA basically means that, I think basically all of you are working in the bank, so very well aware, that is non-performing asset. Clear? Non-performing asset. Clear? So basically in this session, basically we will discuss some important points regarding that. Basically, when will any asset basically become non-performing? Clear? Basically, when will any asset basically become non-performing? Clear? When will any asset basically become non-performing? Clear? So let's discuss regarding that. So an asset, including a leased asset, clear? Basically an asset, including a leased asset, becomes non-performing. Clear? An asset basically including a leased asset basically becomes non-performing when it ceases. Ceases basically means that when it stops. Clear? Basically when it stops to generate income for the bank. Clear? Basically an asset basically becomes a leased asset. Clear? Becomes including a leased asset. Clear? Becomes non-performing when it ceases or stops to generate income for the bank. Clear? When it ceases to stop basically, when it ceases to basically generate income for the bank. Clear? That is basically comes under the non-performing. Clear? That is basically comes under the non-performing. Clear? So a non-performing asset, it is a loan or advance. Clear? Non-performing asset, it is a basically loan or advance. Clear? A non-performing asset, it is a loan or advance where basically when it is basically either it is a loan. Clear? Non-performing asset, either it is to be a loan or advance. Clear? Either it is to be a loan or advance where interest and or installment. Clear? We have either interest or installment. Clear? Of principal remain overdue. Clear? Either interest or basically installment of principal basically remain overdue for a period of more than 90 days. Clear? Basically where for a period of more than 90 days, basically where that is basically in the case of a term loan. Clear? Basically in the case of a term loan. Clear? Interest and or installment of principal basically remain overdue for a period of more than 90 days basically in respect of a term loan. Clear? Basically in respect of a term loan. Clear? This is basically regarding the term loan. Now basically we will discuss second one here, that is out of order. Clear? We will discuss in detail regarding the out of order. Clear? Very, very important for your general understanding purpose. Clear? So the account remains out of order. Clear? The account remains basically out of order in a respect of an overdraft or cash credit. Clear? Basically in which case, basically in which, at which place basically account remains out of order, basically in the case of overdraft or CC limit. Clear? The account remains basically out of order basically in respect of an overdraft or CC limit. Clear? In respect of an overdraft or CC limit. Third one is basically in the case of bills. Clear? The bills remain overdue. Clear? The bills remain overdue basically for a period. The bills remain overdue basically for a period of more than 90 days. Clear? Basically when the bills basically remains overdue basically for a period of more than 90 days, basically in the case of bills purchased and discounted. Clear? Basically when in the case of bill purchased or discounted. Clear? The bills remain overdue. Clear? The bills remain overdue basically for a period of more than 90 days. for a period of more than 90 days, basically in the case of bill purchased or discounted, in that case also it becomes a non-performing. Fourth one is basically the installment of principal, clear, the installment of principal or interest thereon, clear, the installment of principal or interest thereon remains overdue, clear, basically the installment of principal or interest thereon remains overdue, clear, that is basically remains overdue for 2 crop seasons, clear, basically remains overdue basically for what, basically for 2 crop seasons, basically for short duration crops, clear, the installment of principal or interest, clear, the installment of principal or interest thereon remains overdue, clear, basically thereon remains overdue for 2 crop seasons, basically in the case of short duration crops, clear, for 2 crop seasons, basically in the case of short duration crops, clear, and in the case of long duration crops, the installment of principal or interest thereon, clear, in the case of long duration crops, the installment of principal or the interest thereon remains overdue basically for 1 crop season, basically for long duration crops, clear. For the short duration crops, basically it is basically 2 crop seasons, and for the long duration crop, basically it is 1 crop season, clear, and for the long duration crop, basically it is 1 crop duration, clear. So basically these are the some basic things, clear, basically these are the some basic things basically which you have to remember, clear, these are some of the basic things basically which you have to remember, clear, basically which you have to remember as per the guidelines, clear, basically which you have to remember as per the guidelines. Now move to the next one. Out of order, clear, very, very important, clear. Many accounts basically becomes NPA, clear, many accounts basically becomes NPA due to the out of order status, clear, basically many accounts basically becomes NPA basically due to the out of order status, clear, basically due to the out of order status, clear. Now let's discuss basically what is the meaning of out of order, clear. Now let's discuss basically what is the meaning of out of order, clear. So an account basically should be treated as out of order, clear. An account basically should be treated as out of order if the outstanding balance remains continuously in excess of the sanctioned limit or the drawing power, clear, that is DP. Clear, basically an account should be treated as out of order, clear, an account basically should be treated as out of order if the outstanding balance, clear, basically if the outstanding balance basically remains continuously, clear, in excess of the sanction limit or the drawing power, clear, that is basically we can say that if the limit is of basically 2 lakh and presently basically interest is charged basically on the end of the month, and it becomes 2,03,000, clear, and it becomes basically 2,03,000, clear. So that is basically considered to be as a out of order, clear. That is to basically consider as a out of order, clear, basically as per this definition, clear. That is the outstanding balance basically remains continuously in excess of the sanctioned limit or the drawing power. Second case, basically in cases, second case basically where the balance is basically like basically we can say that limit is of 2 lakh and presently basically balance in that account is 1,50,000. That is basically limit is only used of 50,000. Clear, and basically we have already know that basically out of order basically either in the OD or CC account. Clear, so basically in cases where the outstanding balance, clear, basically in cases basically where the outstanding balance in the principal operating account, clear, basically in cases where the outstanding balance in the principal operating account, clear, basically in cases basically where the outstanding balance in the principal operating account basically is less than the sanction limit, like this one, or drawing power, but there are no credit continuously basically for 90 days, clear, basically like basically we can say that the limit is of 2 lakh, clear, basically an outstanding balance in that is 1,50,000. Interest is charged on March, end of March, that is on the end of April and on the end of May. Even in these 3 months, clear, basically there is no credit in the account, clear, even if in that case basically there is no credit in the account is to be treated as out of order, clear, the account is to be treated as out of order, clear. Further, but there are no credits continuously basically for 90 days as on the date of the balance sheet, or credits are basically are not enough to cover the interest debted during the same period. Clear? These accounts should be treated as out of order. Clear? These accounts basically should be treated as out of order. Clear? Like basically we can say that either basically there is not any credit entry. Clear? First one is basically there is not any credit entry. Second one here, that is there is credit entry in that. Clear? Basically there is credit entry in that, but credit entry is not that much enough. Clear? Basically, but credit entry basically is not that much enough. That is basically it equalizes the debit amount. Like basically we can say that interest debited, clear, basically continuously for 3 months is 7,000 and credit amount is only 4,000. Clear? So basically there is a gap between them is of 3,000. Clear? So this account is also treated be as the out of order. Clear? This account be also treated as out of order till that, how much time? Basically till the 3,000 has to be credited. Clear? Till the 3,000 has to be credited. Clear? So that is basically they are saying that basically how much amount is debited, that amount is to be credited in that OD or CC. Clear? In that OD or CC. Clear? To equalize. Clear? Basically to equalize that thing. Otherwise basically it is to be considered as out of order. So please tell fast, it is clear to all of you basically what is the meaning of out of order. Clear? Because we will expect any question on the basis of that. Clear? Because we will expect questions on the basis of that. Clear? Now move to the next one, that is overdue. Clear? Now move to the next one, that is overdue. Clear? Any amount due to the bank. Clear? Basically any amount due to the bank basically will under any credit facility is overdue. Clear? Any amount basically due to the bank under any credit facility basically is overdue if it is not paid on the due date basically fixed by the bank. Clear? If it is basically not paid on the due date fixed by the bank, that is basically considered to be as the overdue. Clear? That is basically considered to be as the overdue. Clear? Now move to the next one, that is asset classification. Clear? Now basically we have to classify the assets. Clear? Important for the examination point of view. Clear? As basically theoretical based question basically we will expect on the basis of these things. Clear? So basically asset classification. So banks are required. Clear? Basically here banks are required to classify the non-performing assets. Clear? Basically we know that basically when an asset becomes non-performing, basically when it ceases to generate income. Clear? Basically when it ceases or basically stops to generate income for the bank. Clear? So banks are required to basically classify non-performing assets further into the following three categories based on the period. Clear? Basically based on the period for which the asset has remained non-performing. Clear? Basically based on the period basically for which the asset has remained non-performing and the realizability of the dues. Clear? And the reliability of the dues. Clear? So basically under which three categories? First one is the substandard assets, second one is the doubtful assets, third one is the loss assets. Clear? First one is the substandard assets, second one is the doubtful assets, and third one is the loss assets. Clear? So let's discuss one by one regarding all these three assets. Clear? First one here basically which we have to discuss, that is substandard assets. Clear? That is substandard assets. Clear? So basically with effect from 31st March 2005. Clear? Basically with effect from 31st March 2005, a substandard asset basically would be one. Clear? A substandard asset basically would be one which has remained NP. Clear? Basically a substandard asset basically would be one which has remained NP basically for a period. Clear? Basically which has remained NP basically for a period less than or equal to 12 months. Clear? Basically with the effect from 31st March 2005, a substandard asset basically would be one which has remained NP basically for a period less than or equal to 12 months. Clear? Basically less than or equal to 12 months. Clear? So in such cases, clear, basically in the such cases, clear, basically where the account is substandard, in such cases basically the current net worth of the borrower or the grantor. Clear? In such cases basically the current net worth of the borrower or grantor or the current market value of the security charge. Clear? Or the current market value basically of the security charge is not enough. Clear? Basically it is not enough to ensure a recovery. Clear? Basically it's not enough to ensure a recovery of the dues to the banks in full. Clear? Basically it's not enough to ensure a recovery of the dues basically to the bank in full. Clear? Like this, basically we can say that even basically if we have any security, clear, that's, and basically loan basically we can say that of 5 lakh. Clear? Basically the value of the security is not up to that much value. Clear? It is not up to that much. That is basically we are able to realize our recovery of the dues, clear, of the bank in full. Clear? In full. Clear? So in other words, clear, in other words, basically we can say that such an asset basically will have well-defined credit weakness that jeopardize the liquidation of the debt and are characterized by the distinct possibility that the bank will sustain some loss if deficiencies are not corrected. Clear? That the bank will sustain, clear, that the bank will sustain some loss basically if the deficiencies are not corrected. Clear? The bank will sustain some loss basically if the deficiencies are not corrected. Clear? Corrected. So that is basically regarding the substandard asset. Clear? So that is basically regarding the substandard asset. Clear? Now move to the next one, that is doubtful asset. Clear? Now move to the next one, that is doubtful asset. Clear? So basically with effect from 31st March 2005. Clear? Basically with effect from 31st March 2005, an asset would be classified as doubtful. Clear? Basically an asset basically would be classified as doubtful if it has remained in the substandard category. Clear? Basically for a period of 12 months. Clear? Basically doubtful asset, it is one. Basically when an asset basically would be classified as doubtful if it has remained in the substandard category. Clear? Basically if it has remained in the substandard category basically for a period of 12 months. Clear? If it has remained in the substandard category basically for a period of 12 months. Clear? Basically for how much time? Basically for a period of 12 months. Clear? That is basically considered to be as the doubtful assets. Clear? Now move to the third one, that is loss assets. Clear? Now move to the third one, that is loss assets. Clear? A loss asset, it is a one. Clear? Basically a loss asset, it is a one where loss has been identified by the bank. Clear? A loss asset basically it is one where loss has been identified by the bank or internal or external auditors. Clear? Basically a loss asset is basically one where loss has been identified. Clear? Basically where loss has been identified by the bank or internal or external auditors. Clear? Or the RB inspection, but the amount has not been written off wholly. Clear? That is amount has not been written off wholly. Clear? So basically in such words, other words, we can say that such an asset basically is considered uncollectible. Clear? In other words, basically we can say that basically such an asset is considered uncollectible and of such little value. Clear? Basically in other words, basically we can say that such an asset basically is considered uncollectible and of such little value that its continence. Clear? Basically and of such little value that its continence as a bankable asset. Clear? That and of such little value that its continence as a bankable asset basically is not warranted. Clear? Although there may be some salvage or a recovery value. Clear? Although there may be some salvage or a recovery value. Clear? Although there may be some salvage or recovery value. Clear? That is basically considered to be as a loss asset. That is basically where loss has been identified basically by the bank or internal or external auditors or the RB inspection. Clear? But the amount has not been written off wholly. Clear? But the amount has not been written off wholly. Now next one, very important. Clear? Now next one here, that is very important. Asset classification basically to be a borrower wise, not a facility wise. Clear? Like basically we can say that if a person basically has taken basically first of all housing loan from a bank. Clear? Second one, basically that person basically will also take vehicle loan from the bank. That is of 20 lakh. That is of 7 lakh. Third one, basically that same person basically has take credit card. Clear? That is basically credit card from the branch also. Clear? And the credit card basically going to default. Clear? So it does not mean that if this is only default, other will not default. Clear? Or other will not go into the NPA category. Clear? Basically it says that basically if one facility is basically going to be default or basically going in the NPA category, other will also go in the NPA category. Clear? Because NPA categorization. Clear? NPA categorization basically with respect to the borrower wise. Clear? That is basically Frohon. Credit card basically goes into the NPA. Clear? So basically its other loan also basically will go into the NPA. Clear? Not like basically only the credit card basically will go, other will not go. Clear? So the asset classification basically to be borrower wise. nor the facility wise, clear, basically nor the facility wise, clear. It is difficult to emphasize a situation when only one facility to a borrower, clear, basically it is difficult to emphasize a situation when only one facility to a borrower or one investment in any of the securities issued by the borrower becomes a problem, clear, or basically one investment basically in any of the securities basically issued by the borrower becomes a problem credit or investment, clear, becomes a problem credit or investment and not others, clear. So therefore all the facilities, clear, basically therefore all the facilities basically granted by a bank to a borrower, clear, therefore all the facilities, clear, basically granted by a bank to a borrower and investment basically in all the securities basically issued by the borrower will have to be treated as NPA, clear, basically will have to be treated as NPA and not the particular facility or investment, clear. All basically they have to be treated as NPA and not the particular facility or investment, clear, or part thereof, clear, basically which has become irregular, clear, or part thereof basically which has become irregular, clear, basically which has become irregular, clear. So basically here asset classification basically to be a borrower wise basically not the facility wise, clear. You have to remember this thing also, clear, because in the examination basically sometimes basically they will ask the question basically in the form of the case studies, clear, in the twisted form, clear. So at that time, basically, we have to remember all these things, clear. At that time, basically, we have to remember all these things, clear. How to analyze the question, clear. How to analyze the question, clear. Now move to the next one here. Loans with the moratorium, clear. Sometimes basically we will expect question on also that, clear. Like basically we have education loan, having basically study time basically that is 3-year degree. So basically when the installment will start, clear, basically in that case basically there is a moratorium, clear. In some cases, basically there is a moratorium of 3 years. In some cases, basically there is a moratorium of 3.5 years. And in some cases, basically there is a moratorium of 4 years, clear, depending upon the situation and depending on the terms and conditions, clear, depending upon the terms and conditions, clear. Rest basically in some cases, basically this is also happened that the basically the borrower basically will continue the installment, clear, basically from the next month of the loan, clear, basically from the next month of the loan, clear. So basically it depends upon case to case, clear. So basically it depends upon case to case. So let's discuss here. So in the case of bank finance basically given for the industrial projects, clear, basically first point that is in the case of bank finance basically given for the industrial projects or for the agricultural plantation etc., where moratorium is available basically for the payment of interest becomes due only, clear, basically where moratorium is available for payment of interest and the payment of interest basically becomes due only after the moratorium or gestation period is over, clear, basically when basically payment of interest basically becomes due only, clear, payment of interest basically becomes due only after the moratorium or gestation period is over, clear, after the moratorium or gestation period is over, clear. So therefore such amount of interest, clear, so therefore such amount of interest basically do not become overdue and hence do not become NPA, clear, basically with the reference to the date of debit of interest, clear, basically with the reference to the date of debit or interest, clear. Like basically there is a 3-year moratorium, clear. So basically interest will be continuously charged, clear, every month, clear, but that will not be treated as NPA because it is in the situation of holiday period or the moratorium, clear, holiday period or the moratorium, clear. Holiday period is also one another term basically which I will discuss you later, clear. So they become overdue, clear, basically when these loans become overdue basically with the moratorium they become overdue after due date of payment of interest if uncollected, clear, basically they become overdue after due date for payment of interest, clear, basically they become overdue after due date for payment of interest if uncollected, clear, if uncollected, clear. Next one here basically in the case of housing loan, clear, in the case of housing loan or similar advances, clear, basically in the case of housing loan or similar advances, clear, basically granted to staff members where interest is payable, clear, basically when where interest is payable when after the recovery of principal, clear, basically where interest is payable basically in that case basically after the recovery of principal, interest need not to be considered as overdue, clear, basically interest need not to be considered as overdue basically from the first quarter onwards, clear. Such loans or advances, clear, basically such loans or advances basically should be classified as NPA only. Clear? Such loans or advances basically should be classified as NPA only when there is a default in a repayment of installment, either of the principal or payment of interest on the respective due dates. Clear? Basically on the respective due dates. Clear? Basically when there is a payment of default. Clear? When there is a default basically in the repayment of installment, either of the principal, clear, of principal or payment of interest, clear, basically, or payment of interest basically on the respective due dates. Clear? On the respective due dates. Clear? So that is basically the case with the moratorium. Clear? Loans with the moratoriums. Clear? Loans with the moratorium for payment of interest. Clear? And in this session basically we have to discuss up to this much point. Clear? There is basically one more session basically we will schedule in the upcoming days. Clear? In that basically we will discuss regarding the provisioning norms. Clear? Like what is loss asset, what is doubtful asset. Clear? Very, very important. Clear? In the examination basically we will expect question on that. Clear? And after that basically we will discuss what is substandard asset, what is standard asset. Clear? Basically we have to discuss all these points. Clear? In the upcoming session. Clear? In this session basically we have to discuss basically up to that is loan with the moratorium basically with for payment of interest. Clear? Basically for payment of interest. Clear? Asset classification basically we have discussed loss assets, doubtful assets, substandard assets. Clear? And basically out of order, overdue, and very, very important, that is how basically when an asset basically becomes a non-performing. Clear? Non-performing. Clear? So thanks to all of you for joining this session. In the next session basically we will discuss some theoretical terms along with some numerical questions. Clear? So that basically we are able to understand the concept.